Welcome, loves, to another episode of my podcast That's Fine With Me. Today we're going to be talking about money. Today we're going to talk about a very important issue. How much do I cost? What is the pricing? And how do I ask for money? I believe that at least once in your lifetime, you ask yourself, oh guys, so what if I charge too much? And what if they say no? Who am I to ask that much money? Or another one really great, maybe I just have to lower my price. And I gotta get the point where some people, they're asking too much money and they're overcharging, they're overpricing their work and their value and their skills. Some people, they're undercharging. And where's this middle ground? How much do I charge? Because different experience, different skill levels, different value, or different type of work that you're offering, it's gonna cost differently, which is quite obvious. And I would say that I'm pretty much sure that you're not taught in any college, school, university, or anywhere else. It's not as popular as many other subjects that how much do you actually charge people with your skills? Because when you offer your skills, most of the times you are going to be reviewed with your experience. And I understand that because you just want to know that if you're paying money, that at least you're paying for something good or decent. And it is dependent. But most of the time people, they try to save some buck and they can hire someone who's not going to charge a lot of money, but then they're going to be disappointed at the final result. Or you don't really want to pay too much money and still get a weird result, maybe great result, but it was overpriced. So I guess it's hard, but we're going to try to dig deeper today in today's podcast and try to find this middle ground. How much do you actually charge for something? And I remember long time ago when I was a college student, I had a great proposal from my mom and my neighbor. She asked if I was able or at least available to teach English lessons to a daughter. I'm from Russia, so English is not my native language. And of course, a lot of the times people were asking for my help because I was English teacher. This was my first major, and my second major later was interpreter, translator/interpreter. And I remember that I asked, it was so unpredictable, and I asked like for $5 an hour. And of course, later I felt like, okay, that is not even close to a normal standard. And I just undercharged severely. I was teaching this kid twice a week, and I was able to save about like $100 only a year later or something like this. In a way, I was inexperienced. In a way, I believe that I had no education, but still my English was really good. And I still undercharged. That is the main reason why I guess later it led to a little bit different situation when I went to my university and I had my education and I had my college degree. But later my teacher, she was like, when I hire people, and she had her own business, some side business, and when she was talking about hiring people, she's like, I immediately hate people when they ask for money and they ask for a salary they're going to be paid in the future. And we were like, what, why? And she's like, because I haven't seen you at work, and that is the main reason why I can give you any perspective on how much you're going to earn. Because if you're a great worker, then I'm going to pay you enough. Or if you're a bad worker, like, so aren't you going to pay at all? It was weird because first and foremost, she mentioned that when she was a student, she was part-time working and then earning some commission from certain papers where she was doing small translations. So she was allowed to earn money, and we were not allowed to ask for money, how much she was going to pay. And when she asked for a help of my two of my group mates and me, she didn't pay us. So if she even said like, oh, I'm going to pay if I know that these people are good at what they're doing, she was more or less satisfied with our work, because with one of our group mates, she said, we don't really need your service anymore. And for me and my other group mate, she's like, okay, carry on with your work. So I believe that she was satisfied with our translation, and she presented me Chanel eyeshadows, and to my other group mate, she didn't give him anything. This was a great experience at one point, but at the same time, like, she earned some commission from those translations. They would translate in the book for someone and they got their payments. We didn't. And they used us as, I would say, slaves in the way. And then later, I guess one of my friends, she had similar situation. She had very hard times. Her dad, he passed away, and her mom, she didn't have a sustainable job that could provide enough money for the entire family. And her older brother, he went to army. I'm from Russia, I mentioned this earlier, and when you turn 18, or when you graduate from university, you have to serve at least a year in army, and this is just by law. If you don't have any issues with your health, then you have to serve. And that was the main reason why my friend, she was left alone with not enough money to support them, and she was forced to find a job. And every single job she was looking for didn't have any sustainable, I guess, payment. And I would say that she had to call multiple galleries because she is a designer, and she was literally asking for a salary, at least some amount of money to help her mom. And she said that I couldn't afford to not ask for money, and she felt like she doesn't deserve to ask for money because she's inexperienced, she just graduated from university. But later she's like, I have to pay my bills. And it's really nice when people expect you to have no money if you have no experience for your job. But she says, but I have to pay actually, and I got my degree not to, slave for someone. And it's literally slavery if you're not getting paid. Now it's called volunteering, but I mean, it was slaving when people didn't get paid for the job they were performing. And it's actually working for any creative industry, unfortunately. If you're working in social media, for example, I work in social media right now, I would say that I don't really get paid. I don't get any promotions, paid promotions, whatever, because I don't have enough subscribers. I don't have enough, I guess, views to get any sponsorships or any payments. And I kind of know this, but I like the fact that I can work for myself. So it's just, I'm not blaming anyone for not paying me because this is my decision and I work for myself. Okay, so I work for myself. If we're going to be talking about other industries where there's payments for other people that are quite experienced or inexperienced enough, they still don't get paid as much. For example, if you're going to charge people like, oh, you have no experience, that's why we're not going to pay you money, or we're going to pay you, I don't know, like $100 a month. Okay, so in a year, I'm going to be experienced. You're going to give me a standard raise in this field. And let's say I'm a 5-year experienced employee. Are you going to pay me twice the price that was, I don't know, for someone who is inexperienced or like a 1-year experienced person? It's really hard to say. Like, why is a 5 or 10-year experienced employee is getting the same amount as the person who worked for 2 years if they have the same position, and someone who has no experience get paid like $0 or paid like some chicken peas that is not going to provide even for bills, to pay for bills. It doesn't go only over social media. It's getting with makeup artists and people like, why do I have to pay for you to paint my face? They don't really considering a lot of things going into that products. They're not considering a lot of things like traveling and wasting time. That is the main reason why a lot of the time musicians, they're not getting paid if they're performing, especially one of my, let's say, kind of friends. She has a music band. They're not famous, and that is the reason why they're performing for free, and they're not even offered any drinks or food, and they are entertaining guests, restaurants or bars or festivals, but at the same time, they're not even getting paid for that, which is crazy in my opinion. I was looking for a job, and I was even willing to volunteer in some magazines, but they have extremely strict conditions, and especially sometimes this magazine, they looking for experienced people, but they're not willing to pay. So like, you need experience, but you're not even willing to pay, or you're freaking kidding me. This is a problem, and this is a problem of a mindset of people that if someone is inexperienced, they're willing to do whatever they need to get a job and to get this experience in order to earn money later. Sometimes people think if I ask for money, I'm going to be considered greedy, I'm going to be unlikable and maybe unreasonable sometimes. Is it realistic to ask for money? And especially, I guess, people most of the time they try to compare themselves to cheaper labor. Cheaper, I mean, in the way that, again, that is the quality of work is so much lower, or maybe these people are not giving you the service that you expect for the money they're asking, as well as the problem with probably diploma, education. Is there any education there? The skills, are they the same? Are they available with the same, I guess, skill set or not? You don't have to always compare yourself to every single person from the market to know that if this person doesn't get paid enough, so I can't ask for more money. And every single time you're talking about raise or salary, I would say it's better to check out the market in general. And of course, you're going to see people that are charging less, people that are going to charge more, and there are going to be some kind of like middle ground and average pricing. And then you have to evaluate your skills. You have to know where are you coming from? Do you have value? What is a skill set that you have and probably someone who's rating themselves lower doesn't have, or someone who's rating higher probably have and you don't? It's about fair pricing, and it's about the way that maybe you're going to ask a little bit more, but still it's justified. So when you're asking for money, one of the most important factor in my opinion is to start that I charge that much money, and you have to be confident and you have to be very cool about that. If people are saying it's too much, you say, okay, I base my pricing on certain reasons, and you're saying that the average market is asking for this, this, that. But if someone is hiring you, they have to know how much the market is asking. It's about the fact that it's not expected for you to tell them how much others are charging. It's about the fact that someone is, let's say, ordering you or not even you, but your service, they have to understand there is a certain rate and standard in the industry that they can ask for. For example, makeup artists that they work with celebrities. I mean, the standard rate, if I'm not mistaken, it's about $5,000 per one makeup, and all the expenses are covered by celebrity most of the time. That is the main reason. And a lot of this, I guess, artists, they're booked for the entire day while the celebrity is going out. That is the main reason why you know that this is a kind of like standard price, and you can ask for more, you can ask for less, and still there's an average that is acceptable in the industry. But you have to get your rates depending on the products you are giving people. So you know that the minimum cost of a product is going to, cost you this amount of money. And you have to understand that the time you're going to get into this work is valuable, because you're not going to be able to provide service for other people. So you're not going to be able to earn from other people. You have to pay attention to this as well. And your skill levels, you have to be reasonable. What do I know? What do I do to make sure that I can charge that much money? You have to be cool in this situation. Like, are your skills good enough to charge that kind of money? And of course, experience. For people that are inexperienced, it's more likely to charge less money, not significantly less, but still less money than a person who is extremely experienced. And it can be a little bit lower at first, but still you have to charge money because you spend your products, your money, your time, and sometimes it might require traveling, which is again another issue. Is it going to be the cost that is covered, or it's not the cost that's going to be covered? And demand, of course, you have to understand, is it a high demand quality or qualification that you're providing, or it's a low demand? And there's so much people out there, especially makeup artists. Unfortunately, there's so much makeup artists out there. Not unfortunately, but so many artists. I'm not saying that all of them are good or all of them are bad. It's dependent on a demand, and you still have to consider if you're charging probably too much, and that is the main reason why the demand on your particular work is quite low. Do not price your work depending on the fact that people can afford you. If you're going to base this the bare minimum, most people, they might not even afford you, but they want to have a great job. There's so many different examples. When I was watching Alex and John, and they were like, okay, I'm a photographer and my friend asked me to be a photographer, and she's like, I am not charging money, that's going to be my wedding present, so I'm going to do this off charge. And then people, they're going to have some bizarre demands from their friend. Is like, I don't like this, the way you photoshopped, I don't like this, I don't like that. They didn't pay money for the service, but they're asking too much. And most of the time it's going to happen with someone who didn't pay a dime or paid little. They think if they paid little, then you have to bust your ass off to provide the service. And it's so common, believe it or not, but when you're underpaying someone or you are underpaid, most of the time people are going to ask some crazy amount of work from your part because they paid you at least some money, and they think that you have to actually provide extreme service for like $5 that they paid you. And of course, I guess you have to ask yourself, what is the income that you want to get monthly? What is the income? How much clients or how much people I have to get for that? Or maybe like what is the field that I have to search for in what industry, and how I guess I can support certain choices of my life, or how I support my life in general. Of course, every single person is going to tell you, I want to be a millionaire, I want to give people service and get paid like millions of dollars for every service that I'm providing. That's cool. How is this realistic? It's probably not. That is the main reason why you, again, going back to the same category, you have to make sure that the service you're providing is quite, I guess, standard for this field. So you try to compare yourself to other people that are providing their service. Not every single person is going to be your client, whatever you ask for. There are going to be people that would say, this person charging too low, so I believe that this person is inexperienced or very bad quality person. That is the yeah, there is a mentality where people think if you're asking less than average or just less money, then you're inexperienced or you have a bad quality or bad value work. Someone would say that if you're asking a lot of money, then you're very experienced and they're willing to pay this money. It's going to be every client for every person, but just still try to find the better option. And I would say that there's still going to be always a huge but. A huge but. When do you think you overprice your work and the cost is exponentially higher than you expected or people expected from you and they're not going to hire you, believe it or not? Unrealistic pricing is still a huge problem because you actually try to search for the average pricing on the market and you're like, okay, I feel like it's either too low or too high. Where's the difference? Where's the middle ground? And I remember that I found one influencer. I will try to find her channel and I will try to find her name. Unfortunately, I don't remember. And she was talking about influencer. She was saying, okay, how much do you charge? Because certain companies, they're going to say, oh, you're charging too much. It's unacceptable. We're going to look for another influencer. And this is their choice, which is totally fine. But sometimes certain influencers, they're overpricing and they're overcharging as well. That is the main reason why there is a standard table of, I guess, certain prices accepted in the industry. And this, I will try to find this table where there's certain column saying how much followers do you have, how much views do you have, and which platform it's acceptable for, and then you can charge based on this table. Of course, I would say that you can go probably like from 5 to 10% higher or 5 to 10% lower. 15 is top, like it's maximum. But in my opinion, if you try to charge more than this standard practice, maybe 20% more than standard practice, I mean, it might be a little bit unrealistic. You might not get enough companies to work with. And I guess you have to put a very important thought in the contract when you're reading the contract that if there's going to be a conflict of interest, if you're reading a contract that there's going to be a company that asking you not to work with other companies related to, I guess, skincare, for example, for 6 months, and you're like, okay, so I'm giving you this position of doing an ad for, I guess, $100, for example, and I'm not going to be able to work with other companies for 6 months, then you have to probably double or triple the price because you're cutting my income. Or I'm going to be able to work with other companies and we're going to live out this point from the contract that I'm not able to work with other companies. This is very important because when you're negotiating, it's really hard to stay in a sharp, I guess, state where it's not okay to be cheapened by the company, but at the same time you have to be reasonable for the pricing. And people, if they say like, why is it so expensive, you have to justify the price. I mean, that is the main idea why you have to scatter the market and know what you're asking for before you're asking for certain prices. For example, when I was looking for a job, the embassy, or not even embassy, but any other jobs, I know that, for example, Asian companies or Asian embassies, they're asking, not even asking, but they're looking for a person and they were offering about $1,000 per month. Then I know that European countries, they're getting the price up to maybe 20-30% from the price of Asian country. And then I know that African countries, most of the time, they might provide better salaries for their employees. And it might be even twice higher than European and Asian countries. That is the main reason before you go to an interview, job interview, you have to understand what is the pricing over there. Honestly, I hate when companies, they're not listing the salary or the wage of their employees, because it's getting you out of the loop how much is, I guess, acceptable or where to ask for. Another great thing to mention in this video is that I hate when companies, when you come to the interview and they're asking, how much do you want to get paid per month? And you just like, okay, I have high value and I'm very experienced, for example. I have certain, I guess, letters from ambassadors or my former employers who recommended me. So I was like, okay, that gives me certain credit. But at the same time, let's be real. You are going to a company and you know that the average salary for this type of job and for this companies, it's from, for example, let's say from $1,000 to, I don't know, $1,100. So the first thing that I would definitely recommend is to say, ask this from your employer. I believe you have a fixed rate for this position. I would like to know what is a fixed rate at the minimum and at a maximum in your company. So we're basically kind of reversing this question and you're asking this potential employer, how much do they pay? And if they're saying like, oh, we have, and they try to answer with weird, I guess, a pause or whatever, you're like, okay, you start with the wording, I was checking the market. I work for a company that was a standard price, this and that. So I left this company because I have to increase my salary at like 10%. That is the thing that I believe it's going to be acceptable for me if I earn from $1,100 to maybe $1,400. That is the main reason why they would consider this as like, that the pricing in the industry is the average, and that you're not lowering yourself or you're not putting yourself into a higher position. So you always have to give them the range. So I'm ready to work, but this is a bare minimum, and this is quite like a rate that I can deal with and be satisfied if you give me this. A lot of the times people, they would be cocky, a little bit cocky, and say that they have no experience, but they want to get a lot of money. Especially, I see a lot of influencers, they're asking brands for some crazy amount of money, but they may not have enough following or enough views or anything related to this topic. And it's not only about influencers, I'm talking about certain positions, again, as makeup artists, where they're charging like $250 for a makeup, when in their city, the acceptable price range is from $80 to $100, for example. It's super expensive. You're not as experienced as like others, or you're the same experience as others, but you're asking for extra money. So what makes you different? What is so valuable about you in particular? And you have to ask yourself, like, what is it that I can justify my pricing with? Not just about, I just want to have that much money. It's about, how can I justify the pricing? Because sometimes the work quality is not going to be the same as the marketing you provided. For example, you're telling people that, oh, I have experience in this, I have experience in that, and then you come to work and the quality of the work is so much lower than you branded yourself. Another great point, if you're not a freelancer or someone who's providing the service, I guess it's going to be like, why do we have to hire you or whatever? Most of the time people, they're going with their promotions and they're saying that I was promoted, like 3 or 4 times within 2 or 3 years, and it was coming from different positions in different fields that I work for, different companies. That is the main reason why I believe that I can ask extra 10 or 20% that you were offering, because I was constantly promoted and I've been working in this and that programs. I know how to work with them, and just like, okay, you can agree on that. Or you can say, I'm willing to start with the rate you're providing, but I would ask for a raise in a month or so when you see my skills, but I want you to put this in a contract, in writing. You have to make sure that everything is going to be in writing and it's not just like bare promises. Then I would say that you have to be more or less aware of the market growth and inflation. Inflation is growing. Sometimes it's crazy, sometimes it's not that crazy, but it's going to the point that if you're going to be able to afford certain products to provide service in the future, if the product rate or price of this product has exponentially risen, then the problem, if you're still keeping the prices low, that you're not going to be able to afford this product to give this to your customers and your clients. So you have to make sure that you constantly check the product's value, time, whatever that is going right now in the market. Don't forget about strong branding and the name. For example, Louis Vuitton and Versace, they are charging that much because they have branding and they have their own name. Though I do believe that it's too, when the quality of their products is so much lower than now the name, I would prefer someone no name but with good quality than someone with poor quality but the name. But it depending on, like, vice versa. Are you able to keep the quality of your work same way as your branding? Or when you started getting high payments and when you have become very popular in the industry, you stopped caring and your quality significantly dropped. There is another trap that people might not actually use your service in the future and you are going to struggle. And of course, client experience. I would say that feedback from people is very important, as well as I have a letter from ambassador from my previous work, as well as I have certain, letters from other employers where I can prove that, I'm qualified to perform certain job. Last but not least is the region where you're coming from. For example, if you're from New York City or from Arizona, it doesn't give any right to charge more in certain cities, but sometimes that's a necessity because you know that Arizona, the prices, they're a little bit lower if you're renting an apartment or a house, where in New York City, you're just not going to survive if you're charging less than the average. That is the main reason why you have to keep this in mind. You have to base your pricing on the market around this area, because different regions, different cities, they're going to be different. You have to, when you're, scattering for some jobs or just like looking for some jobs, you have to find a city that you're living in, staying in, and comparing yourself to this city or town in particular. I hope that this podcast was more or less decent, because I found myself in this trap of a couple of weeks ago when people asked me to start some lessons with their kid, and I'm like, how much do I actually charge? And the first question that I raised was to my, I guess, mom, my sister, and some people that actually paid for tutors, like tutoring, whatever. And I'm like, how much did you pay? And they said, I paid that much money that long ago, and right now the pricing that you want to list is going to be a little bit higher. So then I go to the website and start looking for the jobs, the average job pricing, and I'm like, okay, so I can definitely ask for this amount and justify the pricing, because this is the average, the inflation, the region where I'm doing, experience that I have, skills that I have, and so on and so forth. That is the main reason why I can literally justify the pricing. That is the main idea behind, charging for your work. Do not overprice, but do not underprice yourself, undercharge or overcharge. That is it for today. I love you all so much. And guys, I'm going to see you in my next podcast. That's fine with me. Let me know in the comments, what do you think? Is it a huge problem for you to charge? Because sometimes you have no choice. You just have to ask for more money. You have to ask for a raise. I do know people that are very bold and they will go and say, I've been working for this company for over a year. My salary is lower than the average salary, but I was inexperienced. Right now I have 1 year of experience. You know me, that I work really hard. I need a raise. So let's negotiate. This is another point. You can start low and then you can negotiate later. But be aware that if you undercharge yourself when they hire you, no one is promising that in a year or like 6 months, they're gonna give you more. If it's not written in the contract, most likely people are not gonna raise your salary. So try to find a job that you're more or less comfortable within the range in the market that they're offering right now. If they're going to give you a raise later, that's great. But if not, at least you're comfortable with, I guess, the wage they're providing. And again, love you all so much. Let me know in the comments, what do you think? Do you have any hacks how to ask for a raise or how to talk about pricing? And I'll see you next time. Bye bye.